This is the Sacred Knowing of Is video series with Tisziji Muñoz, interview number 11. I had some questions for you regarding chapters 90 through 98. Can you give an example from history of someone that's considered a genius who spoke and taught spiritual truth in a way that's beyond time and space?
That would be Jesus. Yeah, right. His teachings still hold true today. I mean, not all of them. Some of them were relative to the time and his people. Some of them are universal. And so they are, let's say, out of the deepest wisdom of the human soul and have validity at all points of, let's say, the history of the human race and other races. In fact, they apply to all living beings. Ultimately, they apply to all living beings, since, among other things that he spoke about in terms of his mysteries, was the fact that there were heavens above the heavens and heavens above the heavens, which could be considered to be a good poetic metaphor for meaning that there are many dimensions and higher worlds and greater worlds than this one. And that was not something that was commonly spoken about yet. Because of his incarnation, he brought that to the public, or at least to the society that he was, or culture that he was in at that particular time, and it was noted as part of his speech. And coming from a person of that depth and intensity of conviction, see, and let's say that particular culture at the time, in terms of the esoteric aspects of what he was speaking about. Yes, this is a very, very profound, basic native understanding that we are in a universe and that the heart is the universe, and this universe is the heart of our being here, way beyond just the earth life. In other words, we are more than the flesh, and he proved that by saying he was going to lay down his life because of the lesson that he had to demonstrate to the peeps. And this has been done before by other beings in different cultures who had the same weight upon them, the same burden, or they had to bear the same cross, in a manner of speaking, that we are more than the body, that there is life after death, and that we are living. We are living with a certain kind of responsibility to life as we know it and see it, but then life beyond the body. The most important message is that there is life beyond the body and beyond this time. That we are connected to something much greater that has to do with our immortality, our being part of the light and part of the spirit of the universe.
From chapter 91, you speak about birth. How would someone know when it is spiritually correct or sanctioned for them and their partner to conceive or adopt a child?
There should be signs. I mean, of course, you can make a decision about it. Say, hey, we're together and this feels good, so let's have a child, or adopt a child. Say, we're ready to have a child. Say. But because the person says they're ready doesn't mean they're ready. They usually find out after they had the child, and after they have been subject to the responsibilities that come along with that responsibility of having a child. That's a huge, let's say, step up. And if it's a normal child, you have enormous responsibility. And if it's a handicapped child, you have maybe twice as much. The responsibility for being there as a guide for this child, an enlightening influence for this child, and for a loving influence for this child. So we have to read the signs. It may not be because the person is arbitrarily interested, because they have a mood or a feeling. It may not be the right time for it. People have to look at that and see if it does show up as the right time, not just because somebody says so or feels it. That could be an impulse from the gut. And that could be right, it could be correct, but it could also be the worst thing. So we need to know what our feelings are, We need to know what our signs are that we have, that we experience, because it could also be shown in the dream that it is time to do it. You can be told by somebody in the family that it's time to do it. So there can be any number of signs to give you a better sense of the validity of what it is. And in terms of my culture, if we had that kind of impulse, we would share it with the elders, and the elders would give you feedback on it. Mm-hmm. And you didn't have to believe what the elders said, but it was good to consider what the elders said, because they were not thinking personally, they were not personally involved in your decision making, but they would give you a fair hearing and then give their interpretation. And I think that was always helpful to have some objective input, because we are a unit. As a family, we're a unit, so it's good to test it. So reading the signs is the most important thing for the peeps. And then from the signs they can do it, or you just do it and take what comes with it. That's also, wisdom.
Do you think it's better or more advantageous for parents to be married and or to be living together before having children?
I think the phenomenon of marriage, as we have been made to believe by way of certification, is useful. Sometimes that means something and enables people to open up, and they make a greater commitment to one another because of that. Now, I guess you might say it's a guarantee, but from another level, from the spirit of love, I mean, you don't need such guarantees. The marriage is really, as the natives have said, and people of all societies and cultures throughout the world, from before the institution of marriage showed up, you have to have that bondage in the heart. You have to know when it is right for you. And again, that's reading the signs. You have to know what the signs are. It's not just about falling in love. Of course, we need to agree that the impulse of emotional attachment may be premature, may be immature. And the only way people can learn is if they follow their instincts and believe that they're in love, and they go with the flow as far as that goes, and then realize that they had no idea of love. In fact, if that's the path that they have to walk or tread in order to find out what the wisdom of love is and what it means to be really married spiritually at the heart level, then they're going to have to go through whatever the tests, trials, tribulations, errors, mistakes, or disasters that come their way. But again, it's reading the signs. It's more than just an impulse and feeling and believing or hearing from somebody. Well, that because you look together while you belong together. Nobody belongs with anybody. See, from a spiritual viewpoint, we are here on earth, agreed to experience all kinds of things. And then we also have agreed to disagree with all kinds of things, and things change. We grow up. We can outgrow an agreement. So we have to be creatively aware that we might need to disagree. We might have to disagree with our family. We might have to disagree with friends and relatives. You might have to disagree with your mate or your child or your grandparents. You might have to disagree. You need to know what it is and then take what comes with your disagreement. But you should make your decisions based upon clear and certain signs for yourself that it's the right thing for you to do in your case.
Do you think it's better for people to put aside conventional ideas of romantic notions about marriage and enter into a marriage, say, in more along the lines of like a business contract?
Oh, yes. I mean, marriage is agreement, and that could mean it being agreed at the material level, the physical level. It could mean to be agreed, and that includes materialism, assets, business, and emotional, psychic agreements, and affinities and resonance can happen there. And you have sexual affinities and agreements that could be a factor for some people. And you have mental and memories. You can say, well, I remember this. I remember this person from before, and I know what we did, and I want to finish that. For some psychically open people, they can come together to finish former agreements or complete or completely terminate former agreements, kill them or purify them. We can use the word purification, and then clear the way to move on. So all of this is part of how creative a person is willing to be to defy the contracts and agreements that they need to defy, not define, but defy them. So as to clear the path for the individual's evolution and progression. Right? Often mistaken as a form of selfishness, but there's nothing that really anyone does before they awaken beyond selfishness that is not part of the selfishness, but it doesn't have to be something judged as selfish if it's something that is really for the betterment of the whole, depending on what it is that the person is agreeing to or disagreeing with. So we have to look at the whole picture and give it a fair hearing in everyone's case, rather than give a partial judgment that is more or less not fair at all to the actual circumstance or the karmas involved in the individual's case. So we're talking about the individual. Sometimes that's a mother that has to make a choice whether to pull the life plug from a child, right, or a parent, someone. So these are very profound decisions that have to be made when we're talking about someone who's in a comatic state. And we don't know. See, we have no idea, what to do. So we have people sign contracts, but those people who sign contracts are not doing it out of a knowledge that they are, if they're in a comatic state, they're here or not here. So they don't really know to judge that, because they can get into that state, they can go unconscious and have a spiritual experience and feel that now that they are unconscious in a comatic state and having a spiritual opportunity to have this experience, it enables them to do a certain kind of work in the spirit body that they can never do in the physical body. And that they need the physical body there. This is a paradox. They need the comatic physical body there to finish their work. Which if they are, let us say, killed, I'm going to use the term carefully here, or terminated consciously, they may not be able to finish. So this is just a question, but a paradox for a lot of people, because they don't know if they really let him, the being, go and freeing them of suffering, or if them being in a comatic state is already their freedom from the suffering. Now, I have to add that some people can leave the body before they die, and they're finished with the body and still appear to be alive. And that's a paradox. They may have already gone, as some people have said. Well, I saw the person, but they seem to be already gone. See, so we need a little bit more clarity and certainty as to the actual spiritual reality in the process of persons who are living or dying and so on. So it's good to slow down enough beyond our reactions and our, say, impulses and emotions, get a better sense of what the reality is, so we can know, even though we cannot know for sure. But if you read the signs, you may be able to know more clearly what others can't know in the process.
From chapter 92, you write about plant life. Do plants act differently around certain individuals?
Yes. Yes. You can talk to plants and see if not hear or feel a change in the plants. See? And this is true of research scientists who have subjected plants to music, different types of music. See? And there are certain kind of music that the plants, because of their level of reality, that they have a certain response to. In other words, certain kinds of music, the plants will bend towards that source of music. That's physical, that's obvious. That they like that music, they can feed off of that music, like bending towards the light. See, so there's scientific evidence to corroborate, let's say, these particular views. And then if you play another kind of music, then they will pull themselves away from that kind of music. It means they don't have resonance with that music. Now, I haven't done the research enough to say, well, some plants like rock and roll and some don't, right? Which would bring up other particular, I guess you might say, implications. See, that the same species of a plant can have individual vibratory resonance, which would give them an individual quality that's like unknown, unheard of, for the most part. But we know that they're individual plants, so we can say, well, we know they're individuals. But do we know, because they're individuals, that they have an individual awareness and an individual emotional response to certain types of music? I'm not sure if they've gone that far with the research, but it is interesting, and yeah, they're living beings, no question about it.
Are dying plants and one's surroundings an indication of someone or something being unbalanced on the psychic or astral level?
Well, along with the first question, yes. Can your emotions destroy a plant? Can a plant die because it finds the environment polluted or bad, right? Not negative or dark? Yes, of course. Yeah, definitely. And birds too. It's not just limited to plants, but yes, plants are a way of measuring the health of and the vibration in a certain space. And they need caring because there's some peeps, some individuals, I'm calling them peeps, people who with sick plants can touch them and make them come back to life because their energy is more conducive to that plant. Again, I'm not sure it's that plant and this person as an individual, or if it's that plant and human energy. I'm not prepared to say that scientifically, that they could be responding to human energy, but they could be responding to human vibration more specifically. And I think that's more important.
Would that be a type of person that's prone to being like mothering, like a nurturing type of person?
Could be any kind person. It could be an act of kindness, but that could come from even a demon if the demon is moving in that moment to be kind, right? To be kind, the way it stops. And it offers some openness and some love. I'm just being dramatic, but it could be any being that stops being other than kind and caring. And so any human being, apparently brutal or brutish or barbarian, who stops to offer kindness can have a comparable effect upon any living being. See? Any living being. Because kindness is kindness, coming from the heart. See?
Are plants perceptive to all forms of communication?
I couldn't tell you, I'm not a plant. But it seems that the more research they do, they seem to find that plants are intelligent. I mean, to say the least, sea life is intelligent, aerial life is intelligent, and just how intelligent insect life is intelligent, and amoebic life is intelligent. So to what degree? That's up to research scientists to find out to what degree our living Earth is a living being. And in what way? And in what way does it help us? In what way are we related to these other species? We can say they're lower life forms, but we're not necessarily better because we can do more. They may be critically necessary for the balancement of the Earth and life on Earth. Others would have to judge that.
Chapter 93, you write about animals. For humans who find more sympathetic resonance with animals and or prefer the company of animals over their own kind, would you say that these individuals are young souls?
Did you say for humans who find the company, who prefer the company of animals, young souls? Mm-hmm. They may be old souls. They may be old souls, yes. They may be old souls because if we're going back to native traditions, you have animals who are friends. I mean, I've had animals of my own who were like pets, but they're really friends. Mm-hmm. So I think you can find an old soul in an animal if you know how to look, if you know how to respond to it. So, it's not just that dogs are man's best friend. I mean, you can have any animal that is potentially capable of becoming a best friend under certain conditions. Now, whether or not they continue to be best friends, I mean, there are animals of the most, let's say, ferocious kind that have saved other animals under the strangest conditions, cross species. And so it's hard to really get a proper beat on the nature of animals and what they're capable of doing, or who they're capable of being, or who they're capable of serving exactly. That's still a big question mark. But is there a relationship between the two? Absolutely. Could there be a case where, as they say in India, being an animal, a wild, untamed animal, being in the company of a saint can be tamed and made to kneel and offer devotion to a certain kind of person? Yes, of course. And I think it is written in the scriptures that the animals are servants and protectors of the humans. I'm not saying that's true. I think it's a two-way street. We should be servants and protectors of the animals as much as they are to us. It should be a mutual agreement. Can we be in animal bodies? Yes, we can be in animal bodies. Can animals be in the human body? Yes, in certain dimensions, there's no difference. Depends on what exactly we are talking about. Right? Have we been other species before? Seemingly, yes. We're part of the evolution of the Earth, so there may be traces of us that we can sense that correlate or correspond to, let's say, all the creatures of the planet. Right? We can be any creature. We can be certainly part of this entire planet. And if we can be part of the entire planet, we can also see that we are part of the entire universe to go way beyond, the subject of the planet. See? But we are interplanetary beings. There's no question about that. Maybe not as such just physically, but certainly spiritually, psychically. We are much more than we appear to be.
Can time, astrologically speaking, have an influence on a person's relationship to animals?
No question about it. You're born with a certain time signature that can make you more resonant with animals and more resonant with humans, more resonant with science, or more resonant with religion, or more resonant with music and art. See? So we're born with this. See? It's not just the blood, but it's also the time that we come in. See? That means the configuration of the planets, which means that when you're born, you're born with the blessings of the solar system. You're born with the blessings of the solar system. Then you're born with the blessings of the universe entirely. See? You're born at a certain time when you are you, but not limited to being you. So you have the blessings to be in proper resonance with certain things, but then you also have the opportunity, which is part of our birthright as spirits first, to be able to recreate all of that, see, and let go of all of that for something more important, a higher vision of what that is or what it should be. See.
Do animals feel emotions such as sorrow, regret?
Definitely. I've heard animals cry. Okay, I've heard animals cry when humans cry. And so it's really, I think, important to have the sensitivity to resonate properly with animals, to have a more honest relationship to the animals, so as to think twice about what we do to animals for our own purposes, or for the sake of profit, or for the sake of business, for the sake of consumerism, consumption.
Do all animal spirits reincarnate?
I would say the understanding is every being passes on. That says it. All beings will pass on. And that can mean whatever it means beyond that, but all beings must pass. You have to let go of your skin. You have to transcend the body. Death implies the utter and perfect translation from this body to another.
Do animal spirits...
To include a nobody. Go ahead.
Do animal spirits in the spirit world influence and or guide humans?
Definitely. The spirits have it that spirits take any shape or form, needed or useful to guide certain beings in certain ways. That could take on a form of, presenting dramatic lights in the sky, which are not spaceships, but they're just lights. The spirits can mock up lights in darkness, anywhere, anytime they find it necessary to do that. In the case of certain sensitive beings, they can see these lights, these spirit globes or spirit balls of light or sparks. They can see these things. See, to prove that there's living energy beyond the limits of the physical life, and they can feel the energies. So there's much more than we perceive ordinarily that is part of the spiritual realm, and that influences us, and that in fact interacts with us, unbeknownst to us, but also known to us if we're sensitive enough to resonate with them.
When animals protect, serve, or in some cases save the lives of human beings, is this mostly due to some sort of natural or mechanical response, or could it be perhaps that they're moved or influenced by another spirit?
Well, I think what happens, if we're talking about animals that protect you, there could be an agreement, a form of agreement. That's the beauty of let's say, the higher view of spiritual wisdom. See? That you can find relatives in animals. See? You can find the animals coming to you to pay a debt to you. And you are obligated to animals you owe a debt to, in some ways. So some of this you have to leave to the imagination, because there's a degree of bliss that is incomprehensible because it's not our ordinary experience. But beyond the imagination, we should know that we're related to all beings. I mean, the Buddhist teachings say that all beings are your mother. You have to try and understand that, so that brings up something that shows up as an obligation to treat all beings with kindness and respect. And of course, that's a higher and very noble instinct. It's ideal, no doubt about it. But we'd live a better life doing that than not.